Welcome to KCAL News at 11:30. I'm Jamie Yukas, and we are following breaking news this morning. Defense attorneys for an Orange County judge accused of murder are reacting to a mistrial being declared. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Other factors and considerations and what will happen. I just told him we'll talk later, but he wasn't, like jubilant or elated. He was, he's still pretty sad. Obviously, he lost his wife, and so his life is still sort of ruined, and he still has another potential trial to field ahead. So Mr. Ferguson is not now and never has been in a position where he wants to or will spike the football and be happy about something like this. I'm sure he's relieved. The alternative would have been he would have been taken into custody, so I'm sure he's relieved.
Would you have motion for this trial?
Pardon me?
Would you have motion for this trial if it didn't happen with the jury handed the note?
Well, there wasn't grounds to formally make a motion for a mistrial during this trial. I did object to certain things, as is my right and my obligation, but I didn't make a formal motion for a mistrial. And the jury's last note, after as hard as they worked, I mean, they were out, 9 days, 2 weekends? They were out forever. I think 12, 13 notes. It became clear from their last note that they were deadlocked and they couldn't reach a resolution. So there was no reason for me to ask for a mistrial. The judge was going to do that.
Do you plan to continue being his attorney? Because I know the judge said that he switched representation a couple times. Do you plan to represent him during a possible retrial?
Well, I'd be honored to represent him. I'm honored to represent him this time. But, there's always a lot of factors and considerations that go into that, and it's always the client's choice as to they have a constitutional right to have the lawyer of their choice. So I'll have a discussion with Mr. Ferguson about that today, and we'll see what he decides to do. I mean, he should get me. I'm the best there is, but but that's his choice. Anything else? My son's clothing company, Noor Industries.
All right, we were listening to the defense attorneys in the Judge Ferguson case. This was a case that had gone on for several days. In fact, 9 days of deliberating for the jury. If the judge was accused of shooting and killing his wife. He said that his client is still pretty sad. He lost his wife. He's now facing another potential trial. Just talking about why he didn't make a motion for a mistrial. That was his right not to do so. He was just allowing the jury to kind of use their time deliberating, and he'll see if he continues to be the defense attorney for Judge Ferguson there. Let's go to assignment manager now, Mark Liu, with more on this mistrial and the murder trial of the Orange County Judge Jeffrey Ferguson. This is a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in this trial, and one of the things that I want to mention is that the deliberations for this trial, they were entering their 9th day. Jamie, you had mentioned that. That's longer than the trial itself. Jurors were exhausted. They said that when they passed a note to the judge on Friday. They wanted to go home early because they said that they were having a lot of trouble. They were deadlocked, and ultimately, as you mentioned today, the judge declared this a mistrial. Now, I was just texting with our reporter, senior Orange County reporter Michelle Geely. She is working on this story as well. That's Judge Ferguson there sitting in the courtroom. He has been accused of killing his wife in a confrontation in their Anaheim Hills home back on August 3rd of 2023. Now, a couple of key components of this case, the prosecution brought up in their case, the Judge Ferguson himself in Orange County courtroom. So that was a key component to the prosecution's case, that he knowingly pulled the trigger and killed his wife. The defense attorney, we saw him speaking there live outside the courtroom. Defense attorney Cameron Talley said that Judge Ferguson believed that the shooting was accidental, that he never meant to shoot his wife, and they presented some autopsy evidence and ballistic evidence to that effect. Now, as I said, I was texting with our reporter Michelle Geely. She has confirmed, she tells me, that the jury was deadlocked 11-1 for conviction. So there was one holdout there that simply could not be swayed in Judge Ferguson's guilt. So ultimately, after this 8, almost 9 days of deliberation, the judge simply declared that this a mistrial. Now, apparently, the DA's office, Todd Spitzer, the Orange County DA, is going to speak shortly, and it appears that he is going to attempt to retry Judge Ferguson. Don't know the circumstances yet, as he has not talked, but Michelle Gili is covering this for us, and I'm going to stay in touch with her and let you know how this turns out with what the DA is going to say, what they're going to do next with this case. Jamie?
Great. We'll keep checking in with you, Mark. Thank you. Now to breaking news in the Menendez brothers case. LA County DA Nathan Hochman says he's willing to go forward with the motion to resentence them for killing their parents, but he will not support the brothers' resentence. KCAL News reporter Rick Menendez explains.
The DA just announced his decision on resentencing hinges on one main factor. He says over the years, Eric and Lyle Menendez have told more than a dozen lies related to what happened before, during, and after the killings of their parents back in 1989. And he says the office will not support resentencing until both brothers take responsibility for those lies, he tells us. The Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman spoke for nearly an hour this morning, outlining his position and his decision on the pathway for the Menendez brothers to seek release from prison. He previously denied support for a habeas petition which requests a new trial. He says the brothers' claim of sexual abuse had been heard and rejected by the courts several times. He also pointed out there is a hearing date for Eric and Lyle set for 10 days from now. Hochman says his team asked the court to withdraw the previous DA's filing for resentencing and consider his new response outlined today. Relatives of the Menendez brothers have been advocating for their release for years, saying the brothers have been rehabilitated. Lyle and Eric also have support from people within the Department of Corrections and rank as low as possible for their risk assessment upon release. That's according to the DA. Even with the support for their release, DA Hochman says the brothers need to own up to the various stories and statements they made over the last few decades, including, he says, trying to get people to lie in court on their behalf.
If they go ahead and finally come clean with the court, with the public, with the DA's office, with their own family members, and acknowledge all these lies, and then can be said to have fully and completely accepted responsibility for their actions, in the future, the court can weigh these new insights into making a determination as to whether they now qualify for rehabilitation and resentencing.
So even if that happens and Hochman's team supports resentencing, it is all up to the judge to decide on what would happen next. Without support of the DA's office, the court could still move forward with resentencing. The family members, remember, they're pushing for that as well, with the defense attorneys hoping this resentencing does happen. There is also the option for the governor to give clemency and release the Menendez brothers immediately. So there's lots of variables in what could happen for Lyle and Eric Menendez. This legal saga continues. In downtown LA, Rick Menendez, KCAL News.
Rick, thank you for that. The Justice for Eric and Lyle Coalition, a family-led initiative advocating for Eric and Lyle Menendez's release, issued a statement that reads in part, quote, DA Hochman broke his promise to listen to us, keep politics out of this review, and look at the full picture of this case. As a reminder, we are pursuing 3 avenues for release, and we remain hopeful that the judges, the Board of Parole, and Governor Newsom will transcend the political games that governed DA Hochman's recommendation around resentencing. We will stay on this one, but our other big story today, the weather. As the region's bracing for rain this week, it doesn't look like it right now. It's absolutely gorgeous out there at Santa Monica Beach, but it is going to be changing. Let's go to meteorologist Paul Diano for your next weather forecast. Hey, Paul.
I'm just worried about the sunscreen today. It is beautiful outside, but yes, as soon as this time tomorrow, it's going to be raining, and the rain chance is not going to go away until sometime Friday afternoon. Not a washout on any of those days, but a rain chance for 4 straight days starting tomorrow. So get outside and enjoy some beautiful weather today. We are super close to 70 degrees in many locations. LA is one of them, Fullerton's one of them, Corona's one of them. We've hit 70 now in Pasadena and Temecula, 63 sunny degrees in Simi Valley. Let's go back to the beach. The view is that beautiful. Santa Monica, now the airport at 64, the beach at 60 degrees, but still gorgeous. And notice the sunset time right around 7 o'clock. This is the view from Mount Wilson. The snow level later on this week may drop as low as 3,000 feet. As snowy as the San Gabriels and San Bernardinos looked last week, they're likely going to be even snowier by the time we get a view of them coming up on Friday. Next weather headlines, one more mild and dry day. You're living in it right now. Showers returning tonight. Wednesday and Wednesday night looks to be the wettest of the weather. And as a strong cold front comes through, there is a flooding potential. And I would not be surprised for our burn zones if a flood watch is issued for those locations tonight for the event coming up Wednesday and Thursday. Two storms. First one sitting much closer to us, but it's going to pass by to the south. That said, the northern edge of it is going to give us some rain tomorrow. This storm up in the Gulf of Alaska is diving down in our direction. That will give us a chance of rain Wednesday and Thursday. The change you'll notice today before sunset is the increase in clouds. Clouds will thicken around 5 or 6 o'clock, but not before a beautiful day in Anaheim with a high of 70. 75 today in Chino, 71 Simi Valley, and 70 in Palmdale. Nowhere close tomorrow. We'll talk about how chilly coming up. Jamie.
Another step toward recovery from the Palisades fire. A new rebuilding center is now open in Malibu to help victims. People can come in Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's an in-person hub designed to provide streamlined support for both residents and businesses as they navigate the recovery process. Officials say it was created to provide a centralized spot for key information and resources all under one roof. And KCAL News is also helping LA fire victims. We've partnered with the Red Cross to assist those in need. If you're able to help, please go to redcross.org/KCAL or scan the QR code that you see right there on your screen to donate. A string of suspicious fires early this morning in downtown LA. Several buildings were affected, and investigators say there have been fires there in the past. The first location was a vacant two-story building on Flower Street. The same building was engulfed by flames this past November. Shortly after firefighters arrived on the scene around 1:30 a.m., two other fires broke out in separate buildings just south of the initial fire. Around 100 firefighters put out the flames. Investigators are checking on nearby security cameras for clues.
Go that way.
And Inglewood CarMax is literally picking up the pieces after an angry customer rammed his SUV through the showroom. The driver had just had his car appraised before the rampage. Well, then several employees and customers were hit. The suspect took off and eventually turned himself in.
What I was seeing was people, screaming, hurt, trying to move, run away, and some people were still in there, just shocked, like they just were stuck there.
This is unreal. 8 people were injured, 2 of them, in fact, critically. President Trump's answer to a question about a possible recession has sent Wall Street tumbling today. Let's go ahead and take a live look at the numbers on Wall Street. It just gets worse and worse as we go to check in. Now down more than 916 points. Started off the day about 400 below. And the stock market slide is continuing as China's retaliatory tariffs take effect today as well. Beijing punching back with 15% retaliatory tariffs on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, and 10% tariffs on meat, dairy, and soybeans. Again, this all starts today. During an interview with Fox Business, President Trump tried to downplay a trade war, but he did not rule out a recession.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America.
This morning, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that 83% of USAID contracts will be canceled. The Trump administration had repeatedly called for dismantling USAID, alleging that much of the funds were misused. All right, to some happy news now. Big Bear's newest family welcomed that third eaglet over the weekend. We get a live look just ahead. Plus, Jackie and Shadow might be looking for some parenting advice. Up next, how parents play a role in their child's behavior at home. We are following breaking news. District Attorney Todd Spitzer is now talking about the following mistrial being declared in the case of an Orange County judge accused of murder. Let's go ahead and listen in.
We're not going to litigate this case today under any circumstance because we're absolutely prepared to retry this case, and we are ready and willing to answer ready anytime the court tells us that the court is ready. So we are ready and willing and able to charge the case. We will be meeting to be fair. We will review the evidence. We will have discussions as an office, and we will be making determinations with respect to what we will do moving forward. But an 11-1 is a success in the world that we operate. Every one of us are trial lawyers. Every one of us has hung a jury. Every one of us has retried a case. Every one of us understands what happens sometimes on appeal when a case is overturned and we do it again. That is part of our bread and butter. But it was unequivocally clear by the jury's outcome, obviously not a verdict, that they believed that our prosecution team proved this case beyond a reasonable doubt to 11, and there was obviously one holdout. That happens. I respect that juror. We respect the jury process. We're part of the system. We understand how the system works, but we're ready to retry it. What I want to make unequivocally clear, because some of you did see me during the testimony and during the cross-examination of Mr. Ferguson, he admitted on the stand under oath that while he was a magistrate, he was considering cases while he may have been under the influence of alcohol. I'm announcing at this moment that we will be reviewing any and all cases by Judge Ferguson while he was a magistrate where the individual comes forward. We will have a process that we will have on our website, and we will announce to the defense bar and anybody who represented them, say for example in pro per as an individual without counsel, that we will have a process if somebody believes that their sentence, the way they were treated, was inappropriately or unprofessional, we will review all of those cases and those allegations. That, quite frankly, is not part of the gravamen of the crime, murder, but it was something that came out, and as a district attorney and all of us as our ethical obligations, we understand that we have to review those cases. The evidence, and again, there's differences of opinion between some of the family members, and I absolutely respect their point of view, but the evidence is overwhelming. Mr. Ferguson murdered Cheryl, and they left a beautiful son, Philip, to have to live out the rest of his life without a mother, and potentially with a father who may be incarcerated for a very, very long time if we, in a retrial, are successful. And I'm very confident that we will be. That brings out difficult emotions. Anybody in a situation confronted with the case that we presented to the jury would find themselves torn, upset, and equivocating. It's natural human behavior. And I don't fault anybody for having those emotions. But when 11 individuals chosen at random are put in a jury box and they reach an agreement, 11, that's overwhelming information back to us that we proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt, and that case is ready for a retrial. All right, Michelle.
Some of them are listening to the family. They don't want Jeff Wright to murder. They say after listening to this case that they have, in some cases, changed their minds. What do you say to them? I mean, you just touched on it, but what are you going to say to them? What do you say as under Marcy's law and as the victim's family and ground for Marcy's law?
Right, so many of you know I was a statewide campaign manager for the proposition back in 2008. I ran that campaign, and obviously I'm a big believer in the adherence to respecting victims' rights under Article 1, Section 10 of the California, Article 10, Section 1 of the California, Article 1, Section 28 of the California Constitution. It's important for people to understand how society is structured. The victims absolutely have a right to be heard at all critical stages of the proceedings. But society vests its decision-making on prosecutorial cases with its elected district attorney. We represent the people of the state of California. We don't represent a party. We don't represent a particular family member. We represent this nebulous concept called the people of California. And when Mr. Hunt or Mr. Cunningham or Ms. Walker or myself stand up in court, we say, yes, Your Honor, Todd Spitzer for the people. And so I have to stand back as a district.
All right, we're listening to a press conference by Todd Spitzer in Orange County right now, and the mistrial being declared in Judge Ferguson's case. Something interesting said at the beginning of this press conference that they are prepared to retry cases that were seen by Judge Ferguson because under oath, he did say while he was considering cases as a magistrate, he was under the influence of alcohol. So I'm sure we will dive into that. You can hear that our Michelle Geely is there at the press conference, and we'll have more on this a little bit later this afternoon. Returning now to the weather and a live look outside. It is beautiful right now, but changes are on the way. Meteorologist Paul Diano here for a look at your next weather forecast. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Jamie, all the more reason to enjoy now. Now is a beautiful day. Tomorrow is going to be a lot less fun to get outside. You may want to consider getting the umbrella out of the closet. It starts tomorrow. The rain does. Malibu, 60 degrees with sunshine. Next weather headlines, 7 straight cooler than average days. So just taking the rain out of it, which we can't. It's going to be chilly for about 7 straight days after today. Scattered showers, mainly light rainfall is likely tomorrow. Could be some pockets of steady rain, but flooding threats are minimal Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday, that's not the case. Flooding threats are going up, and we will have a strong front moving through late Wednesday night. That may dump just in a couple hours an inch or two of rainfall. So we are tapping into some tropical moisture later on this week. Today, we're just tapping into spring. 70 in Los Angeles, 73 for our warmer valleys, Inland Empire 75, but changes are coming. 75 becomes 60 tomorrow in the Inland Empire. Wednesday, especially Wednesday night, very wet, and the chance of showers does not end until Friday afternoon. Jamie, back to you.
All right, Paul, thank you for that. And before we go, we want to give you a live look at our favorite party of 5 in Big Bear. Yes, bald eagles Jackie and Shadow have welcomed their 3rd baby to the family over the weekend. We want you to check out this video from yesterday afternoon. It is so adorable. We got our first look at Jackie feeding her brood. You can see their 3 little heads bobbing up and down there as they get food from Mama. What a beautiful little sight. New parents are often in search of some advice, by the way. Dr. Cheryl Ziegler joined KCAL Mornings to share her expert insights. She says one of the most asked questions she gets is why kids act one way at school and very different at home.
So many parents say to me, why is my kid fine at school and then they come home and they just totally fall apart? Right. And there's multiple reasons for that, but one of the big ones is the structure, the predictability, the consistency. And that's what we as parents, we are just as distracted and addicted to our screens as they are. And so we go, oh yeah, 5 more minutes on that, right? And then we get lost in doing something. Before you know it, it's been 30 minutes and you're like, oh, I told you to get off of that, get off of that. Right? So they need that. Otherwise, they can easily get lost in distractions in other places. And so the other thing I want to say is just with sports and activities, a balance of structured, that's great, but also a balance of free play and just like creativity.
Great advice. Dr. Ziegler added that while minimizing screen time is encouraged, it is more important to monitor what content they're watching online and absolutely no screen time before bed. Thanks for watching KCAL News at 11:30. KCAL News at noon with Amy Johnson is up next.